this activity is one that I just kind of had a ton of fun with, and you can do the same. The kids have a great time with it, and I find it as a really good introduction going into ocean. So we've talked about weathering, we've talked about erosion, we've talked about deposition. Well, where did the sand on the beach come from? There's a lot of good discussion to have on that, talking about how that sand on the beach represents whatever the land is like from behind it. So if you think about it, your sand on the beach, if it's got a lot of dark stuff in it, you might be around a volcano area where you have darker rock that's being weathered and eroded down into the water. You may be in an area that has just light pieces of light rock around it. Your sand is going to be a different color. So it's a good discussion to have with kids. So what I have done is I literally have collected sand from around the world. And so I have all sorts of jars of sand. And I pass these out, and I have, you can see how light colored it is, how dark colored this one is. This one's got rocks in it, and the kids can shake them and look at them. This one has brown in it and just some debris in it even. This one's fine, but it has pieces of rock and shells in it. And then this one also has some more debris and very brown in it. So these are just some samples that I have collected. And what we do is pass them around, and the kids look at them in a group. And I have a lab sheet that goes with it, and the kids have to make observations. What color is it? What's the size of the granules? What's the texture look like? Can you think of anything else that you can observe in it? Are there other things in it? What can you see? I do not let them open the jars. Heavens knows. After that, we talk about, if you're in the Pacific, what color might your sand be in the Pacific Ocean? What did we just learn about? All the volcanoes, all that volcanic activity. Our sand in the Pacific Ocean is probably going to be darker. Sand on the Atlantic Ocean and closer to the equator is going to be made of more shells. So what color is that going to be? That's going to be lighter. That's where you're going to get your whiter sand. So it's going to be lighter. Think about how ocean waves hit the rocks. When ocean waves are hitting the rocks, they're going to be breaking up those rocks more and more. So therefore, your sand is going to be finer. If you're in an inlet or where the water is being protected, your waves aren't hitting the rocks quite as hard, and your sand might be bigger pieces. If you're around a river, you might have more soil from up farther altitude on that land. It might be more brown. So a good rule of thumb to remember is the closer to the equator, the lighter the sand. The closer to the open ocean, the finer the sand. Pacific usually has much darker sand. And one fun thing to throw out is that you say, they say that they have black sand in Hawaii, but you can't have the black sand because they say the gods will come get you on that one. So you can't get that out of Hawaii. Kids get intrigued with that one. And then on the bottom of this, then the kids have to make an inference. Is it from the Atlantic or the Pacific? Is it from the ocean or an inlet, or around the equator or near to the poles? So after we pass around all of the, depending on how many pieces you get, you might find some sand from a river. You might find some sand from the ocean. You might find some friends, because I didn't travel all these places, to bring you sand from all over the place. It's a fun collection to have, and the kids are intrigued with it. So after everybody has observed all pieces of it, then I pull down a world map, and we talk about each one. Well, number one was kind of light. What color did you think it was? It was pretty fine. Do you think this is closer to the poles or closer to the equator? And then we would discuss this, and number one just happens to be from South Carolina. So on the map, I would point out exactly where each one is from. So it's kind of a fun way to throw some geography in there, a great way to introduce going into the ocean part before you actually get there, and also reviewing erosion, deposition, and how the sand is made.